Well, this is the largest protest against Iranian theocratic rule since the 1979 revolution. It's not the first, but this is the largest and most sustained in terms of the number of days. There is a caveat on that. There weren't any large-scale protests yesterday, and this is really a race between those who want to overthrow the regime and those who want to absolutely sustain the regime by slaughtering lots of people. What we can say, I think, from a European perspective, is that the number of casualties, deaths in Iran at the moment probably exceed all those that were killed in the Russian invasion of Hungary in 1956 and Czechoslovakia in 1968. So this is not a sprint from both, it is a marathon, and that's from both perspectives of the regime, whose bar is very low, regime survival, and the protesters who probably want regime change. There's also a caveat on that. What most of the Iranian people don't want to have is a descent into chaos, such as what happened in Syria or Libya or Iraq. That does put a caveat potentially on those who would join the protest in the future.
You said to Iran this morning that help is on the way for protesters. What did you mean by that? What kind of help?
You're going to have to figure that one out. I'm sorry.
You could help to implode the economy going after their oil assets. An alternative way of doing that is to do cyber attacks to try and degrade and destroy some of the ways that the people are paid, for example, because if people aren't paid, they generally have a propensity for peeling away from the regime. So it could be that economic targets are a way to do this, alongside leadership targets and targets of repression. Those are the three elements you would look at. Does America have enough capability to do that currently? The answer to that is probably no. They would have enough capability to do a kind of missile raids with Tomahawk cruise missiles, but that would not be a compelling event to compel Iran to change its course. For the Americans is to ensure that they've got force protection for their elements in the Gulf, because it is a Iranian and Persian cultural norm that retaliation should be deemed to be acceptable and part of their culture. That's effectively what they did after the 12-day war in last summer in striking Al Udeid, one of the major air bases of the Americans in Qatar. But that was performative. It was, telegraphed to the US that they were going to do it. But as I say, the first thing that the Americans need to do is get their ducks in the row on force protection, not only in terms of Al Udeid, but their Fifth Fleet is based at Bahrain. Also, of course, HMS Jafar, the British element, is alongside. So the Brits also need to do that. The second thing which caveats them doing things instantly in any meaningful way, I'm really talking about, is Venezuela, for example. A force build-up began from September until we had the strike in the early new year. The geographic distance of major assets to make a major campaign difference are a long way away, and you cannot overcome the geographical constraints unless you utilize time.